5 years from this day, on November 6th, 2022, 1 p.m. Japanese Standard Time, the VR MMORPG, Sword Art Online, opens up its servers and the game is officially launched. That's the story we're hoping is going to play out in real life, just as it did in the pages of the books and the frames of video we've been entranced by. While there's no guarantee that that's what's going to happen, if the license holders for Sword Art Online's games, Bandai Namco, wanted to make a fully fledged Sword Art Online VR MMORPG in time for the book date, the time to start working is now. MMOs like World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV took about 5 years of development to create, so it isn't unreasonable to put something of Sword Art Online's scale in that category. If all goes well, we'll be getting a Sword Art Online game on time. Knowing that, what kind of game should we be expecting? While I won't rule out the possibility of a miracle, all signs are pointing towards the reality that gaming quality brain-computer interface virtual reality won't be ready in time for launch. Even if it were, it's unlikely the dev team would have the opportunity to take full advantage of it because of how late into the development cycle it would appear. It's highly probable that the game is more of a normal MMORPG, being designed with the current paradigm of virtual reality, a head-mounted display and motion controls as an option. It'll likely be designed to target mid to low-end VR PCs as well as the next generation of consoles. I'm sure some fans out there will be more than fine with that. The current VR experience is still pretty great after all. But what will be the options for those of us who aren't? Can we make Sword Art Online? The Sword Art Online intellectual property is not in the grounds of the public domain, so our ability to create a game based on it are limited. The easiest route is to create a game that is functionally Sword Art Online, but is not called Sword Art Online. This sidesteps the issue, while also potentially giving more options for getting funding, as it is practically a new IP. Another option is to make a smaller, less polished game that captures the spirit of Sword Art Online without declaring it to be official. In a sense, it'd be the Jinshir fan software, at the mercy of the IP holder's whim, but allowed to exist depending on the country's legal gray area in that region. The final option would be to adequately pitch a proposal to Bandai Namco. Considering the costs of game development, the likelihood that they have their own plans in the works, and how obvious the proposal is, I think the only way they could be convinced to bite would be to bring a nigh-complete prototype of the game that they'd basically get to slap a logo on and publish at minimal cost beyond the quality assurance and marketing techniques that they have to employ. Each of these routes is valid, but I'd say the best would be to follow through upon the first option, creating a Sword Art Online inspired work. Seeing the amount of fan projects that we have going on right now that are effectively doing just that, it seems I'm not alone in this line of thinking. The legal matter of creating a Sword Art Online game aside, the next major step would be deciding how to create the game. What game engine to use, hardware to target, and project setup to work around. There are a wide range of opinions available on the matter, but I'll be providing my own directly for the sake of time. Let's start with the game engine. Custom-made engines are the preferred method for MMO projects, but it is neither realistic nor practical to go fully from the ground up for a project of this scale for a team that does not have funding. Unreal Engine 4 stands out, as they are fully open source, enabling engine customizations by the team for the game's unique needs. In addition, Unreal Engine is already well regarded in the industry and is gaining ground in the Japanese game development scene, so any pitch to Bandai Namco based attempts would be advised to use the engine, as it would give Bandai Namco more confidence in the project. Unreal Engine 4 also allows monetization of products made with it at a 5% profit-based license, so any version of the game we create, whether it be free, paid, or some other variation, would be just fine. With the game engine now selected, choosing the target specification comes next. Running this game on mobile, current generation consoles, Xbox One X and PS4 Pro included, and even the highest end of PCs available today, is just not feasible. complex physics interactions between rigid and soft bodies, interactive AI systems, versatile procedural generation, and abundant gameplay actors demand a great amount of constantly available CPU power, something which these platforms lack and that will likely only be plentiful in the next generation of consoles or in PCs in the post-Ryzen era with plentiful cores and clock speeds. From a rendering standpoint, Michael Abrash, chief scientist at Oculus, predicted that within 5 years, virtual reality rendering will be in the realm of 4K by 4K at 90 frames per second per eye, driving this degree of image quality with real-time high-resolution shadows, dynamic lighting, global illumination, high-quality particle effects, greater than 8K resolution textures, and a 10-kilometer range draw distance along with photoreal models is beyond our current hardware. We'll need to hope that the next 5 years bring out a substantial improvements in graphics hardware, code optimization, and that foveated rendering pans out as many virtual reality developers are hoping it will. Otherwise, we'll have to make some substantial cutbacks to get the visuals we want where we need them. Setting up a massive game project like this is not easy. MMO studios employ hundreds of employees at once, across multiple continents with funding in the tens of hundreds of millions to create and maintain their games. Without a large source of funding with a team set up, the project would essentially be an open source product. I can't say I know of any open source game projects that have started from the ground up and created a large final product, although open source software like Blender and Linux show that it can be done. If we change tactics and instead look at the fruits of the modding community, it is clear to see that there is a much greater degree of success there, with games like Counter-Strike, Team Fortress, Dota, and DayZ starting out as mods to a core title. If a dedicated team could get at the center to create a foundation that is then supported and built upon by the community, a much higher degree of efficiency that can take advantage of the best the community can offer will be formed. People of varying skill levels, backgrounds, and interests would all be able to contribute to the project, adding their own small piece where it is accommodated, whether that be creating a texture, sculpting a 3D model, or coding an AI response tree. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Building Sword Art Online is possible. We might not be able to get it to run at the virtual reality level we want to yet, but getting the core game out at a modest fidelity setting like 1080p at 30 frames per second, using the highest end hardware we have, like a pair of GTX Titan XPs with an i9-7980XE or a Threadripper 1950X, is entirely possible. That being said, I think we all know the piece of the puzzle that's holding all of this back. It's the same one that was too weak in 2014, and the very same one that is looking to be a problem in 2022 at this rate. Full dive. I'll reiterate my opinion here. I don't think brain-computer interface virtual reality, and by extension full dive, will be ready by 2022. I dare to even extend that to 2032. My dream scenario would be the rise of a miracle scientist like Kayaba Akihiko in real life, who could figure out the secret and get the job done. Nothing would make me happier, honestly. I don't want to discount the possibility entirely. After all, it goes against the very name of this channel to deny that kind of a possibility. But the realist in me just doesn't even see where we can make this happen in time for 2022, let alone the year of 2017. I could be wrong, and a scientist or a team of them will develop a super AI that figures out how to get the job done in time, and a product based on that miraculously gets developed in time for launch. The sheer amount of breakthroughs that would be required for this kind of a miracle is not something that should be reasonably expected. Whether we want to or not, our only options here are to either accept the current trajectory of virtual reality or push forward in a different direction, hoping that that works. You know, there are 3 scenes in Sword Art Online that resonate with me the most, that push me to keep trying my hardest whenever it comes to virtual reality. Each of these scenes captures something that I hold dear and that continue to play a role in my spirit as a gamer. The very first scene, where we see the launch day for Sword Art Online on October the 31st, being covered in a live stream just before the actual server's launch at 1 PM Japanese Standard Time on November 6th, leading into the link's start. The second scene is when Klein and Kirito are gazing at Aincrad's sunset in awestruck reverence at the marvel that is the experience they're having. The last is when Kirito and Elizabeth are together in the Ice Dragon's nest, cold as they hold hands and drift off to sleep. Each of these moments captures a part of gaming that I hold dear. The hype of a new game launch, the joy of having a game meet or exceed your expectations, and finding a greater meaning in the game than you came in expecting. The point I'm getting at here is that perhaps we don't need Sword Art Online's VR MMO debut to hit every note that the show touched upon to be happy with what we get. The visual spectacle that the graphics I outlined earlier would elicit is going to be just as mind-blowing as what we get now when we see footage for things like Star Citizen, Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5 with PC mods, and Horizon Zero Dawn. I've outlined in my previous videos how Sword Art Online's gameplay systems compare to many that we already have in games today, so we can expect to get immersed in them just as we do now in games like Skyrim, Breath of the Wild, The Witcher 3, and World of Warcraft, assuming they're designed well, of course. Really, just looking at the Oculus Rift I have right now, the idea of having over 16 times the resolution, along with a wider field of view with variable focus capabilities and a well-spatialized audio solution sounds absolutely incredible. More would clearly be better, of course, but I don't think we can discount how awe-inspiring the sights we'll see will be at that point. We have 5 years, everyone. The clock is ticking. When 1 PM Japanese Standard Time, the 6th of November, 2022 arrives, will you be diving into the games we get from the expected sources and hoping for the best? Will you be trying out the fruits of the community's collective efforts? Regardless of what ends up happening, I think we all know the words we'll be uttering in unison right at that time. Link start!